How's it going guys, Kris here, and today I'm going to be running over the different settings in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, giving brief explanations and letting you know my best settings for the game, which you might want to try out and tweak accordingly for yourself. This guide is catered specifically for consoles and controller use, i.e. PlayStation and Xbox, so do keep this in mind if you're playing on PC and using mouse and keyboard. So to kick this guide off, I'm going to start with the audio section, get that bit out of the way with first of all. At the top of the screen, you're going to find the volume section with audio mix. As for the audio mix, this is going to optimise the in-game sound to best suit your setup, so I'd advise choosing the one that best applies to you. Obviously, soundbar if you're using a soundbar, headphones if you're using headphones. Because I use surround sound speakers, I've gone and chosen home theatre, but just pick the one that's most appropriate for yourself. All the volume tabs are set to 100, though I've just got the music set slightly lower, just so all the other more important sounds are a tad more prominent, so I can hear them a bit clearer over the music. Mono audio is switched off as I find this generally sounds better, and then below this is the subtitles options. This is basically the on-screen text that pops up and appears when somebody's speaking in the game. At default, they only appear in the campaign, but I still prefer to switch them off completely. It's best knowing that they'll still appear in the campaign when characters speak in different languages, so they are still going to be there regardless of what you choose. Subtitles aren't really necessary in multiplayer either, so if you still want them on when playing Modern Warfare 2 story, you're probably best just leaving this at default. And if you do have subtitles on, you can customise their size and background opacity with the options below this. Next you'll find the voice chat options, and if you don't really use this feature, I definitely advise switching it off, as you're going to hear a lot of irrelevant background noise from other people in the lobby. Dogs barking, tinny music blaring out, you know, that sort of crap. If you have a PS5, nice little thing to know if you didn't before, the PS5 controller has a mic built into it, so if you do have this turned on, then the people in the lobby are probably going to hear you too. I'd only use this if you're playing in a party with a few mates, which you can choose in the options below in the game voice channel bit, along with a few other things here to adjust general mic settings. And last of all in this section, you can choose whether or not you want to hear background music when using the Juggernaut killstreak, if you ever get around to using it that is. And you can also customise your hit marker sounds to be just like the original Modern Warfare 2, should you want to throw in a bit of nostalgia, though I've chosen to stick with the default Modern Warfare setting. The last option is to reduce tinnitus sound when you get hit by flashbangs and concussion grenades. If this is something that bothers you or hurts your ears, then you can reduce this sound effect right here. Anyway, next we're going to head over to the graphics section, where we'll be able to find a bunch of stuff to customise and adjust the game's visuals. At the very top of the screen, you'll see an option that says On-Demand Texture Streaming, which basically streams some of the game's high-res textures over the internet as you play, which otherwise would have made the game a much bigger download file. You'll probably want to have this enabled to get the best texture quality, though doing so does actually allocate an extra 24GB of console storage space, so that the game can save the textures in a cache folder. Generally speaking, if you've got sufficient hard drive space and a fast enough internet connection, then you'll probably benefit from having this option turned on, as you'll be able to stream the textures quicker if your download speed is fairly high. With that said, there doesn't seem to be a massive difference as far as I can tell, so if you do need to switch this off, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. Below this, you'll find the post-processing effects, which are all mainly personal preference. I've chosen to turn off the motion blur, which is fine for the campaign to add a bit of extra immersion, but can generally hinder rather than help in multiplayer, with your screen being slightly blurrier as you move around quickly, possibly making it harder to acquire a moving target. Film grain is switched off, though depth of field is left on, so we can focus more so on what we're aiming at in the centre of the screen while we're aiming down sights. The next option you'll find is the fidelityfx CAS, aka Contrast Adaptive Sharpening. I definitely advise switching this on, as it's going to make edges look sharper, more defined, and less blurry, essentially boosting the graphics, which might make enemies easier to spot. I have this setting at 90, which seems to be a nice level to make the visuals pop a bit more, though I will say that I've got my TV sharpness set at 0, so there's nothing artificial going on the TV side of things. If you have your TV sharpness set quite high, then you'll probably want to either reduce that first, or reduce the fidelityfx setting, as they can both conflict with each other to make the contrast too high. Maybe something to play around with and see what best suits your TV or monitor. Further down the list, you'll find the 120Hz setting, which can bump the game up to 120fps in exchange for lowering the resolution. You will need to hook your console up to a TV or monitor that supports 120Hz, basically one that's got a HDMI 2.1 port, plus you'll need to make sure that 120Hz is enabled in your console settings too. If you do happen to have a compatible TV, then I'd highly advise switching this on. especially for multiplayer, as it's going to give you a much higher frame rate and smoother experience. Though if you want the best graphics and you're quite happy with 60 FPS, then have this switched off, which will probably give you a more cinematic experience, especially during the campaign. Next up is the field of view setting, which lets you adjust the view so that you can see more of your environment on your screen. Having this set too low will put you at a disadvantage, as you often won't be able to see enemies on the edges of your screen, though too high and everything will look too small and far away, giving a bit of a fisheye effect. I've found that 110 seems to be a bit of a sweet spot, though this is something that you might want to tweak for yourself. And within the field of view settings, you'll find ADS field of view, which I've left it affected, just so it scales correctly with my chosen setting when aiming down sights. Otherwise, it'd zoom in a lot more, which might throw the aim off. Plus I've also left the weapon field of view at default, though if you find your guns looking too big or too small on the screen, then you could always apply one of the other options here. Third person field of view, I've just left it at 85, which seems fine enough. And the last options in this section are all related to camera movement. If you want the most immersive experience, leave this at default, though anything to give you a slight edge in multiplayer is worth adjusting. So I've got both of these set at the lowest setting at 50%, just so that the camera shake is less likely to get in the way while playing against other players. Third person ADS transmission just means that if you're playing in third person, you'll remain in third person when aiming down sights, which I generally prefer. And I've gone and put the default spectator camera to gain perspective. The helmet cams are quite cool, but I generally prefer having it the good old fashioned way. Now let's get onto the controller settings. At the top, you'll be able to pick your input device, which is typically going to be locked on controller if you're playing on console. On the edit button layout tab, you can customize what your buttons do in game. I've chosen the tactical layout setting, which basically switches crouch and melee around, generally a good thing to get used to in most FPS games, with your thumb already being on the button should you need to duck down and get out of the way. Under this, I've just left the next few settings at their default. Controller vibration I've left on just to add a bit of rumble, though I know a lot of you guys might prefer having this off instead, if that rumble gets a bit off-putting. And on PS5, you'll see an option called trigger effect. This basically adds some resistance onto the triggers when pulling them down and firing. To better simulate reality, I just add in a bit of extra immersion through the haptics. In the campaign, I'd switch this on, though in multiplayer I'd probably prefer having it off for better consistency. As for the aiming section, I've got both horizontal and vertical stick sensitivities set to round about 8, though this is definitely one that you might want to adjust for yourself. Some people prefer having the horizontal settings slightly higher, which might be worth testing out for yourself, though I found that having both set around 7 or 8 is a nice balance for me. Though I've got the ADS sensitivity multiplier set just slightly higher than normal at 1.35. This just makes aiming feel slightly snappier, though the other sensitivity multiplier sliders are all just left at default. If you play inverted like me, and you press up to look down and down to look up, then you'll be able to choose this option under the vertical aim axis, though most of you guys are probably going to want to leave this as standard. Now pretty much everything else in this section is just left as it is. This all feels like a natural way to play for me, and probably most people who've played Call of Duty games before, though there are a couple of things here that you might want to change if need be regarding the behaviour of ADS and using your equipment. Now if you press R1 or the right bumper, you're going to head over to the advanced section where you'll be able to fine tune some settings and make further tweaks to affect your gameplay. Right at the top you'll find the aim assist settings, which you'll probably be best switching on, though there's 4 different types of aim assist to pick from which function slightly differently to each other. Default is a pretty similar sort of traditional aim assist from Modern Warfare 2019, where it will slow down your aim near targets. Precision kicks in closer to your target, but's a lot stronger and more sticky. Focusing is also pretty strong, but kicks in when your aim is just outside your enemy's hitbox. And Black Ops is a similar sort of aim assist that you'll find in the Black Ops games. Leaving this at default is probably the one I find works best for me, though I've had some good results with the Black Ops setting too. Next you'll find the aim response curve type, which can drastically affect how the game feels to play overall. This is definitely a setting that you might want to test around a bit. A lot of you guys will probably feel familiar with the standard setting, though I tend to prefer picking dynamic, which gives you reverse S-curve mapping. Linear on the other hand maps directly to your stick input, which can be a pretty good one for getting on target quickly, though this one can take a bit of getting used to, and might make sensitivity feel a tad harder to control. With that said, give them all a try and see what works best for you, though dynamic's normally the one I'd go for. The next few settings after this I've just left alone. This just affects aiming sensitivity when focusing with scopes, and the custom sensitivity per zoom I'd probably avoid switching off, just to make aiming feel consistent over your different zoom levels. As far as the dead zone settings go, I'd highly advise lowering your left and right minimum sliders down as far as you can. I've got them both at 0, which might be a tad too low for a few of you guys, especially if your controllers are prone to stick drifting issues. But the lower this setting is, I find the more control you're going to have over your aim, which just makes slight adjustments easier to make. Below this is the dead zone maximum settings, which I've both got at 0.85. This, once again, makes camera and aim movement slightly quicker than normal, and a lot of you guys might have better results leaving this maxed out at 1. Having this lowered just means that less force is required on the thumbsticks to register input. And lastly in the dead zone section, the trigger dead zones, which I've got really low at 0.02, just so your gun starts firing pretty much as soon as any force is applied to the trigger, cutting down any time in between. Now pretty much everything else in the advanced section I've left at default. There's a few small changes here that can be tweaked, but generally speaking, most of the stuff in the combat, vehicle and overlay behaviour sections seem fine enough as they already are. Next up is the interface section, with the first two options at the top left at default. If you have trouble reading the text in the menus and stuff, then this just lets you make the text a bit bigger. Text chat backgrounds just left at 20, and the message duration left at short, just so messages aren't lingering around on screen for too long. Pick the language of your choice, obviously, and as for colour customization, I've chosen to select Filter 2 and target the interface only. This just makes some of the icons on the map and in the game world pop a little bit more, especially with the reds which indicate enemy locations. Though if you want your own custom icon and world colours, then you can select them in this section too, which changes the game's hue and or interface colours. Then we're met with the subtitles again, which should be saved already from the other section earlier. Just ignore this, and then we're onto the HUD. I'd advise choosing the square option, as the circle cuts the corners, essentially making the minimap slightly smaller, and you're probably best leaving the next 4 settings on too, which is all HUD information like the crosshairs and hit markers, with the map rotating as you do in the game world too. I've got player names set to full names, just so they don't get lost in the environment quite as easily, and vehicle HUD prompts fading after 5 seconds. Then the rest of the interface section is left alone, unless you want to know more about your system performance and connection while you play, or want a couple of features to help reduce motion sickness while playing the game. Last of all is just a small tab called Account and Network. This lets you enable crossplay if you want to have that enabled. I'm personally not a fan of crossplay, but some of the modes like Ground War do actually require you to have it enabled in order to play, so for that reason I usually have it on, sometimes switching it off when playing the smaller modes. Crossplay communication is switched on, and then you'll see your Activision account, which lets you change your in-game name, providing you've got a rename token. Under this is an extra security layer that you can activate on the Call of Duty website, and you'll also see anyone you've blocked here too. You'll also be able to switch text chat on or off here, and choose whether or not you want to see the in-game gore effects. I'm going to guess that most of you guys are going to want to leave this one switched on. So that's basically all there is to the console and controller settings in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. You can highlight specific settings and assign them into the Quick Settings tab for easy access to the ones you tend to play around with and tweak a lot, but those are my best settings and a general guide to what you'll find in the menus. Hope this video helped you out, give me a like if it did, and thanks for watching. I'll be seeing you in that next one.